Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. UFC Vegas 49 just ended. The main event was Islam Makhachev versus Bobby Green, and this is going to be my post-fight reaction. I'm mainly going to talk about the main event, Makhachev versus Green, but I'm also going to touch on a couple other fights. So you look at the main event, Islam Makhachev wins via first round TKO, and this fight was just utter domination by Islam Makhachev. Bobby Green was not able to let his hands go at all. Bobby Green clearly has the striking advantage, but because of the threat of the grappling from Islam Makhachev, Bobby Green really was able to throw nothing. He was too worried about the takedown. Eventually, Islam Makhachev closes the distance. He threw a combination. I don't even think they landed. Eventually clinches up with Bobby Green and then eventually finds his way to a double leg takedown. Takes him down, controls him on the ground, eventually works his way into full mount. Bobby Green turns over and Islam Makhachev just flattens him out and just keeps throwing punches until finally Herb Dean steps in. On a rare occasion, Herb Dean actually gets the proper stoppage. I was so glad he stopped the fight. I mean, at this point, Bobby Green was doing nothing. He wasn't taking the most damage just because he was kind of covering up, but he had nothing to offer. He was just flattened out, and Islam Makhachev was brutalizing him. And, this wasn't the greatest fight as far as entertainment value, because literally that's all that happened. It was Islam Makhachev, striking from range for a little bit, but really nothing happened in those striking exchanges. I think Islam landed like one nice leg kick. Outside of that, neither guy really landed much. And then it was the takedown. Once Islam Makhachev gets the takedown on you, it's basically over at that point, depending on who you are. But in the past, it's like if he's able to get you down and control you, it's over. I predicted this fight to go to fourth round submission for Islam Makhachev. I thought because Bobby Green's head movement and the way he carries his hands are super low. I thought he'd be able to defend the takedown a little bit better. But the second Islam gets in on your legs, there's just no stopping him. There's no stopping him. I mean, he put up a little bit of resistance in the clinch. But the second Islam started to dive in on those legs, he got it on his first attempt and took him right down. And Bobby Green had nothing for him on the ground. And I know there's not a lot of you can take out of this, because Bobby Green stepped in on short notice. I mean, I know he was in shape. He had just fought at 271. But at the end of the day, a guy coming off a fight against Nasrat Haqparast, a training camp for Nasrat Haqparast, is not the same as stepping in on basically 1 week's notice against Islam Makhachev, who all he wants to do is just take you down, ground and pound you, and submit you. So really, I don't think Bobby Green loses anything here. It's really unfortunate circumstances, because I personally really wanted to see the Islam Makhachev versus Beneil Dariush fight, and it would have let some of the Islam Makhachev haters and deniers of his title shot see him prove himself. And I know the resume isn't the greatest, and I would have much preferred him fighting number 3 Beneil Dariush, but what are you going to do? Beneil Dariush pulls out with a serious injury, and Bobby Green is the only guy willing to take the fight. Arman Tsarukyan turned it down. Plenty of guys turned it down. I have no problem with them turning it down, just because, I mean, who wants to step in on 1 week's notice against Islam Makhachev? I wouldn't recommend anybody do that. I know they offered it to a couple guys in the rankings, Tony Ferguson being one of them. Thank God Tony Ferguson did not accept that fight. It would have been a mauling. So, Bobby Green's the only guy willing to take the fight, and he gets dominated. I wish this fight would have went a little bit longer, because I really wanted to see Bobby Green, see if he could start letting his hands go a little bit. But I talked about it in my prediction video. When you have a guy that is such a takedown threat, and once he gets you down, you're not able to get back up. And once he gets you down, he's looking for the finish. It's hard to let those hands go when you're worried about that nonstop. And Bobby Green was really, I think this fight ended 3 minutes and 23 seconds into the first round. So we had a couple minutes of action. I know majority of that was on the ground, but Bobby Green never really threw anything from, that was even close to landing, I think. I don't think he landed anything on the feet, because he was worried about Islam Makhachev closing the distance and taking him down, which he eventually did, and just dominated him. I wish the fight would have went a little bit longer. I would have liked to seen Islam striking a little bit more, even if Bobby Green was able to defend the takedowns just enough where we could have seen some striking exchanges between the two. I think this fight would have been a whole lot more enjoyable. But no matter what, I think the people who are saying, oh, Islam Makhachev is so boring, I understand it to a point. But for me personally, I find it very entertaining. If you're able to take a guy down and absolutely control him and maul him on the ground and eventually submit him or finish him via ground and pound, I don't know how you can call that boring. And I know some of his other fights have been a little bit lackluster, but this particular performance against Bobby Green, look what Bobby Green, and I know it's nowhere near the level of the elite, but look what Bobby Green did to Nasrat Haqparast. Look what Bobby Green did to Ali Quinta. You know, he really dominated them and destroyed them. And again, I know he came in on 1 week's notice, but I'm just saying, no matter what, for Islam Makhachev to do that to any guy in the UFC lightweight division is decently impressive. And I know a lot of people are going to say that Islam Makhachev does not deserve a title shot with a win over Bobby Green, who came in on 1 week's notice at a 160-pound catch weight. That's not even at lightweight. But my rebuttal to that is, that's not what he's getting a title shot for. He's getting a title shot for a 10-fight win streak. That is what he's getting the title shot for. A dominant win streak, even if it's not against the most elite of the elite guys in the lightweight division. This win streak deserves something. And when you look at the rest of the division, which I'll go through it briefly real quick in a second, you look at the rest of the division, there's nobody else more deserving than Islam Makhachev. So I 100% believe Islam Makhachev is next in line for a lightweight title shot after UFC 274 plays out, which is Charles Oliveira versus Justin Gaethje. And I don't think one win over Bobby Green is what gets him to it. I think it's the collective 10-fight win streak over decent competition, especially when you look at the rest of the division. There is not one person more deserving than Islam Makhachev. Real quick, and I have an entire video dedicated on this. It's 15 minutes long. You can find it on the channel. You look at the division, Charles Oliveira is the champion. He's defending against Justin Gaethje, who's on a 1-fight win streak over Michael Chandler. And I think Justin Gaethje deserves it just because his only recent loss is to Khabib Nurmagomedov, who's now retired. He's the interim champion. He won the interim title off of Tony Ferguson before eventually obviously losing that title when he was defeated by Khabib in the title unification bout. But he's getting a shot at 274 in May, I believe that is. So it's not like Justin Gaethje's getting skipped over. Dustin Poirier just had his title shot and lost to Charles Oliveira. Beneil Dariush is injured. Who knows when he's going to come back? Now, if Beneil Dariush is able to return anytime, pretty quickly, I would like to see that rebooked, and then we can really get a true number one contender, because Beneil Dariush is the only guy you can make more of a case for a title shot instead of Islam. But his leg injury kind of excludes him from the competition. Michael Chandler on a 2-fight losing streak, Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje. Dos Anjos has 1 win at lightweight, or 1-win streak at lightweight against Paul Felder on short notice. Tony Ferguson's on a 3-fight losing streak. Dan Hooker's no longer in the division, also on a losing streak. Conor McGregor on a 2-fight losing streak and is still injured as of right now. Then you start to get the Gregor Gillespie 1-fight win streak against a guy who's ranked number 15. And that's the entire top 10. So who deserves a title shot more than a 10-fight win streak? Islam Makhachev. There's nobody. And if you're listening to this and you think that Makhachev does not deserve a title shot for the lightweight division after beating Bobby Green, let me know, who else would you give it to? Because let's say hypothetically Charles Oliveira defeats Justin Gaethje at UFC 274. Are you just going to have Charles Oliveira sit out? Oh, well, there's no worthy contender, so we're not going to have him defend the belt. That's just not how it works. So Islam Makhachev is next up. I have no problem with it. If there was someone more deserving, there would be nobody complaining more than me. I would be complaining nonstop. And I've talked about the resume. It's not that great. But there has to be something said for a 10-fight win streak over decent competition. It's not absolutely abhorrent. It's decent competition. 10-fight win streak. I think Islam Makhachev fights Charles Oliveira next if Charles Oliveira defeats Justin Gaethje. Obviously, if something weird happens in that fight, maybe Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje run it back. But if Justin Gaethje wins, and let's say he wins in dominant fashion, then I have no problem with Justin Gaethje making his first title defense against Islam Makhachev. Either one of those fights. But honestly, I really, really want to see Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev. What a absolutely compelling stylistic matchup. You have Charles Oliveira, who is so good on the feet. He has such great forward pressure, and he has world-class jiu-jitsu, and the way he snatches up submissions is incredible. Combine that with Islam Makhachev, he just wants to take you down and grapple you. I love that stylistic matchup. I'm so curious how it would play out, and that is one of my most anticipated fights for 2022, and I really hope it gets made, but that all determines on whether or not Charles Oliveira can defeat Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje is no easy win. So if Charles Oliveira beats him, I think we have to see Oliveira versus Islam. And hypothetically, Islam has come out of this fight with no injuries. He wasn't touched really at all in this fight. Let's say Beneil Dariush, for whatever reason, I don't think this is the case. Let's say he can return in May. I have no problem with the UFC booking Beneil Dariush versus Islam Makhachev again, and then the winner of that fight fighting the winner of Charles Oliveira versus Justin Gaethje, but I just don't think that's going to happen. But again, I know people are going to clown this win against Bobby Green, and, we said the same thing about Dan Hooker, which was on short notice, but you can't help, you got to accept the fact that there's guys who were elite or considered elite that Islam Makhachev accepted fights with, and then it never came to fruition. I know some of it was his fault, but a lot of it, Beneil Dariush pulled out. RDA had pulled out, I think, multiple times in the past. So it's not his fault that he hasn't been tested. I think we all want to see him tested, myself included. So I guess at this point, 10-fight win streak, nobody else deserving. Let's see him tested against the champion. So whoever's the champion will be a real stiff test for Islam Makhachev. But overall, he dominated Bobby Green. I expected him to dominate Bobby Green, but I expected Bobby Green to put up a little bit more of a defense against Islam and it go to the later rounds, maybe a third or fourth round. The fourth round was my official prediction. But Islam shows that if you're not absolutely world class, he's going to take you down and dominate you. Look what he did to Dan Hooker. He had more trouble with Thiago Moises than he did with Dan Hooker or Bobby Green, which is absolutely insane to me. But I can't wait to see him fight for the title next. Let's move on. There's one other fight I want to talk about on the card, and that is Arman Tsarukyan versus Joel Álvarez. What an incredible performance by Arman Tsarukyan. I was one of the people that was doubting Arman Tsarukyan. I looked at the recent fights, and I thought Joel Álvarez has looked really good in the striking department, and he has great submissions. So I really thought, okay, I think Arman Tsarukyan may end up getting submitted on an entry for a takedown. Arman took him down in a scramble early in the fight. I don't know if he slipped. It happened so fast, but it looked like Joel Álvarez was throwing a high kick or Arman was throwing a low kick as Joel was throwing a high kick. I don't really remember, but Arman ended up on top. And Joel Álvarez was in decently defensive positions. He was throwing some elbows from the bottom, but eventually Tsarukyan really started to open up with some nasty ground and pound. And by the way, I predicted Joel Álvarez to win this fight by second round submission. I was dead wrong on this fight. Couldn't have predicted any more wrong. And eventually, through that first round, he just controlled Joel Álvarez, started to open up with ground and pound, eventually just brutalized him with a filthy elbow. And I literally thought the ref was going to stop the fight mid-fight. There was so much blood coming out of Joel Álvarez's nose, or there was a cut on the bridge of the nose. There was so much blood coming out that it was literally covering Joel Álvarez's eyes. I had not seen that much blood since Cain Velasquez versus Bigfoot Silva years ago. Bigfoot Silva got cut in a similar spot, if my memory serves correct, and he was just bleeding all over the canvas. And Tsarukyan just bloodied him up, bashed him up a little bit more. Then the round ended. They were able to stop the bleeding a little bit in between rounds with some Vaseline, wiped it off real good. Second round comes out, Tsarukyan takes him down again and just starts to brutalize him with ground and pound again. And eventually opens up that cut again. Joel Álvarez just isn't defending. Referee gives him every chance, gives him absolutely every chance to be able to come back in this fight and survive. He's telling him, fight back, fight back. Arman Tsarukyan just laying down more ground and pound. Eventually, he had like a back position up against the fence, just landing ground and pound over and over again. Cut is just open up, flowing like it was in the first round, bleeding everywhere. Finally, the referee steps in and stops the fight. Some people were complaining that it was an early stoppage. I thought it was a perfect stoppage. Joel Álvarez was showing nothing. He was showing absolutely nothing in this fight. Tsarukyan was able just to control him, and Joel was moving. The ref would say fight back, and Joel would move a little bit. But then it would just go back to more and more ground and pound from Arman Tsarukyan. And I am very high on Arman Tsarukyan, but I was very high on Joel Álvarez, and that's why I picked him in this fight. But Arman Tsarukyan just went out there and showed all of us not all of us, showed me and a lot of people, I saw a lot of people also picking Joel Álvarez, that we were completely wrong. And I thought if Arman won this fight, he would take him down, hold him down on the ground, land some ground and pound, and probably win a decision. But he went out there, super impressive and dominant performance. And, Joel Álvarez really had nothing for him. There was really not many strikes landed on the feet before the scramble in the first round where he was taken down. And there was really not much thrown in the second round before he was taken down by Arman Tsarukyan. Arman Tsarukyan is a real threat within the lightweight division. And he is a very hot up-and-coming contender. And, I think he's going to probably jump into that top 10 maybe. You look at the top 10 right now, I think it's very likely that Tsarukyan could find himself in the top 10. And he just looks so dominant in this fight. And I know he was a massive favorite. And I know Joel Álvarez, I feel like only hardcores really know him. So maybe people will devalue this win. But I think this is a really solid win for Arman Tsarukyan. Joel Álvarez is no easy fight. I can't wait to see who Arman Tsarukyan fights next. Maybe I'll make a video on potential opponents. But for him to go out there and not only dominate Joel Álvarez, but to finish him in the statement fashion that he did, and Joel Álvarez had nothing to offer, I think is super impressive. And I can't wait to see where Tsarukyan goes within the lightweight division. Honestly, lightweight division is really looking up. You got guys like Brad Riddell, Rafael Fiziev, Mateusz Gamrot, and now you have Arman Tsarukyan, who's sitting there at the 13th spot in the rankings currently. You have Gregor Gillespie as well. I would rank Arman Tsarukyan above Gregor Gillespie right now, my own personal rankings. I would rank him above Conor McGregor right now, who's sitting at number 9 in the official rankings. So Arman Tsarukyan, super bright prospect. There is a chance we could potentially see Arman Tsarukyan versus Islam Makhachev in the future. And, that would be a rematch. That was Arman Tsarukyan's debut against Islam Makhachev. Islam wasn't known as much as he is now. And that was a very competitive fight. I think Islam won 29-28 on the scorecards. I would love to see that ran back in the future. Hell, I would love to see that ran back before Islam even gets his title shot, but I don't think that's going to happen. But there's a significant chance we could see Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan for a lightweight title in the future. That would be crazy. That would be crazy. Both guys are really, really good. And Tsarukyan, I think, is a legit top 10 lightweight. And I think that he's just so well-rounded. And, you look at certain guys who do very well, it's the guys who are the most well-rounded. Tsarukyan has great grappling. He has great wrestling. He has good striking. He has good power. He's fast. He's young. He hasn't taken a lot of damage. He has a good variety of attacks. I mean, Tsarukyan is great everywhere, and there's a lot of guys that I would pick him over right now. I could go down the list, but I think he could beat Rafael dos Anjos. I think he would definitely beat Tony Ferguson, who's ranked at number 7. And you guys know I'm a big Tony Ferguson believer. I think a lot of people are tap dancing on his grave a little bit too soon, but I am that high on Arman Tsarukyan. I was high on him before, but I picked against him with the Joel Álvarez fight, but now I'm even higher on him because of the win over Joel Álvarez. I would pick him over Conor McGregor. I'd pick him over Gregor Gillespie. I don't know about the Rafael Fiziev or the Mateusz Gamrot fight, but I would love to see those matchups. So let me know what you guys think of this card, UFC Vegas 49. Does Islam Makhachev deserve a title shot? Who do you want to see Arman Tsarukyan fight next? And just comment down below your overall thoughts for the fight card. Appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much, and see you in the next video.